Welcome, everybody. So here we are. It's Monday. I'm back from vacation. A lot of things took place while I was gone. I hope you were able to check out the news program I did earlier today. But as I promised, John Howler's with me today. John, are you ready to rock and roll? Because so many weird things keep happening, and they're not getting any less weird. I mean,
I talked to Pete Garcia. We were texting. I think we talked on the phone last week, and I said, "So Pete, I saw you put some things up yesterday. Have they sort of the shelf life expired on those things that you put up 24 hours ago?" And he said, "Yeah, I think it has. I think they're out of date now."
Yeah, I mean, look at stuff's just nuts.
I know. So I told you I was wearing my orange shirt today as symbolic of my views of what's happening are under construction.
No kidding.
Because everything is changing so quickly.
No kidding it is. I mean, so I'm gone. You know, I wasn't able to do much while I was gone, but I'm looking at everything going, this is just nuts. And it gets more and more bizarre every day. Yesterday I'm sitting in church and all of a sudden I get the Biden announcement.
He resigned after my update. I think he did it just to spite me, but...
Did you notice how he resigned on National Ice Cream Day?
Yeah, that's kind of symbolic.
That is.
In the room, there's all kinds of rumors flying about that too, about his real condition. I mean, nobody's seen him, nobody in the public or media. And, you know, there are other people reporting that there was a medical emergency when he was in Las Vegas. And his brother, this one I was able to confirm, his brother was giving an interview, I think it was with CBS, and said, "Well, I'm just glad to have him back so that we can enjoy what time we have left."
Whatever that means.
Which is I know, what does that mean? I mean, in this environment, though, a statement like that, it may just be totally innocuous and innocent, but a statement like that gets blown way out of proportion.
It does. Okay, so we look at this, then you throw Kamala Harris into the picture. That's, you know, and so this is Breitbart. New York Times board wants Kamala Harris out of the race. So that didn't last long. So, I mean, you look at this, okay, is Michelle Obama, I mean, all I see is everything is getting more and more disruptive. Everybody's getting more and more on the edge. I mean, this has got to have the whole world, I would think, the Western world, a bit concerned, because you look at America, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of strange that sort of the calm, serene person in the room now is Donald Trump.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, you know, so, but, you know, even the Republicans, they can't help themselves with not doing stupid things. So, for example, last week at the Republican National Convention, they had that Harmeet Dillon, who's a phenomenal attorney. I mean, if you need somebody to defend you in a white collar case, Harmeet should be like in the front of your Rolodex. But she's a Sikh, so she gets up there and does this ridiculous prayer to the Sikh god or whatever it is she worships.
So that's who was doing that. I wasn't sure who it was. I wasn't.
Yeah,
I was in Mexico.
She came very close last year to becoming the chairman of the Republican National Party. She ran for that. She didn't get it, but she came close. There was a lot of talk that she was going to make it.
Very interesting. So that's who the person was. I know who she is, but I didn't recognize her as being the one who was doing that prayer. I'm watching this, John. This is my take, and I want to develop it a lot further over the weeks ahead. But what I think is going to be transpiring out of what we're watching is a greater call for unity, and it's going to be a call for unity of religion at the same time. And we can already see it affecting the Republican Party. I mean, you look at what's going on, it's just insane, but isn't this also a dynamic that we should expect if we are getting if this kingdom of Antichrist is coming, the infrastructure is being built for that, we would expect something like this, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think the calls for unity and the concerns about the people in charge, I think, need to be evenly distributed towards both ends of the spectrum. So we know the people on the left, and that's kind of low-hanging discernment fruit to criticize them as crazy and all this other stuff. And remember that they have this belief they're going to bring in this great light, utopian light or something like that through their political views. Unfortunately, on the right, and so I don't look at it as a line anymore, like there's the right and there's the left, but I look at more as almost like a horseshoe, and the right and left are sort of meeting. You understand what I'm saying? They're sort of meeting in the middle, and I think that's something to be concerned about. And so I think we got to sort of pay attention to both sides of this. And the Republicans were very disappointing. And this was done at Trump's insistence. They backed off on abortion. They put some things in the platform about that. And because they're not a church, they're politicians. Mm-hmm. And they see this as a losing issue.
Yeah. Well, all these different dynamics that are taking place. And then you throw Zuckerberg into this, and Zuckerberg, in the interview I saw, which I did not see the whole thing, so I can't comment on the whole thing. You probably did, but he seemed a bit enamored with Trump. And you're going, I mean, you're watching these dynamics of everything taking place.
Was that Zuckerberg or Musk?
It was Zuckerberg.
Oh, so he's getting all the somebody called him the broligarchs of Silicon Valley.
Broligarchs. So I mean, I'm watching these things, and what a strange world we live in. And you literally every single day something new is taking place. And then of course we have Netanyahu getting ready to come before Congress. We're still wondering who's going to be actually running for president. I mean, I got a question for you, even before, because we really got to focus on Israel. Israel's such a timetable. Right. And I want you to go to Israel with me as soon as you possibly can, but that's another story.
We'll talk about that. I'm ready to go in the fall, I think, sometime. So.
Well, I might be going in the fall. Well, I am going in the fall. If you want to go with me, I'll tell you about it. Okay, so with that, let me ask you this. This is a weird question. So Barack Obama cannot run for president, right?
That's right.
You're an attorney. Is it too far beyond people who lie and don't follow the Constitution to try to force the hand of whoever to say Obama's running and you can't stop it? They don't care if it's unconstitutional. Lawsuits will fly anyways. Would they do something like that?
Look, I wouldn't put anything past these people at this point. So there's a meme that goes around that says, well, what they'll do is they'll appoint Obama as vice president. And then, by the way, if I was Kamala Harris, I would sort of put out a lot of tweets right now that I'm not suicidal or depressed or anything like that, just to be sort of protect yourself on the downside there. And then they would take out Kamala Harris, and then Obama would be able to become president, Barack Obama. And I don't think that's true. The 13th, so there is an amendment, the 25th Amendment says you can only be elected to 2 terms, or if you serve more than 2 years of someone else's term, you can't run for, you've met your limit. So you're going to be able to be elected to 2 terms. So people say, well, that's elected, not selected. But the 13th Amendment, I think, takes care of that and says that if you're not constitutionally eligible to be president, you can't become vice president. That's the 12th Amendment that was enacted in about 1803 or 1804. So I think that would take Barack out of the picture. But, I was watching, I think it was Brent Bozell was on Fox this morning, and he was saying, this has been Obama 3.0 administration. So it hasn't prevented him from doing everything. And even the New York Times yesterday or Saturday, in their discussion of Joe Biden, he felt that Obama, and he said that this is the New York Times, Tom, said Obama or Biden was criticizing Obama because he was viewed as a puppet master. That's what Biden said about Obama.
Well,
and they call us crazy.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I look at this. Listen, no doubt we live in fascinating times. I mean, if anybody thinks this is normal, they're nuts. They've been completely brainwashed. We are not living in normal times, whatever normal times are. So John, this says, according to ballotpedia.org, for the 2024 presidential race, states such as Nevada and Wisconsin have deadlines after which ballots cannot be changed regarding candidates. For instance, Nevada's deadline passed on June 28th, and Wisconsin only allows candidate removal in the case of death. So, I mean, doesn't this also present a little bit of a challenge?
Well, if some of the tweets that I'm seeing from like Charlie Kirk and Laura Loomer are correct, that death thing may be met very soon or already has taken place. I don't know. I really feel like I'm sort of in Never Never Land, and anything I say will easily be proven wrong very quickly or change very quickly. But yeah, there are 4 states, and some of those are battleground states that were very key to the election results in 2020. And those will, it appears that they can't change who's on the ballot.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know, all of this is so very interesting. I gotta read this to you. This is from one of my friends. He's in Tennessee, follows us both, by the way. And he said, he's quoting from Job chapter 12, where the Bible says, "He makes nations great and destroys them. He enlarges nations and leaves them away. He takes away understanding from the chiefs of the people of the earth and makes them wander in a trackless waste. The leaders, they grope in the dark without light, and he makes them stagger like a drunken man." Doesn't this sound like what we are witnessing happening at the highest places of politics in America?
Yeah, that seems very appropriate. The example I would think of is the DEI appointed director of the Secret Service, and she was this morning, Monday, today, she was testifying in front of a congressional committee. She didn't even know what happened. It's been she kept saying, well, it's only been 9 days. And my point is, no, it's been 9 days. You should know what happened that day, where people were, why weren't things. And she has no clue. And there were a lot of mistakes at the Trump rally on July 13th. And so, so people in charge of a very important function of our government, in light of threats made on everybody's lives as a candidate, she doesn't have any clue as to what she's doing. And she's in charge.
Yeah. And obviously, sloped roofs are a real difficult situation for people to be able to. I mean, I'm looking at the insanity of everything that was taking place. I've seen some very intriguing information regarding multiple shooters, and this guy just being, he was just a setup to be used as a scapegoat. And of course, they take him out. Dead man tell no tales. So you look at it, and it's interesting.
Well, so you probably don't remember. You're probably not old enough. You were just barely old enough to be aware of your surroundings, I think, when JFK got shot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess you were just a few years old at
I was
most.
about 5. I think I was 5 years old. 4 or 5.
Okay. So I was 9, and I was transfixed to the TV. I mean, this was the first big live TV thing other than the Cuban Missile Crisis that I remember. And so the day of the shooting, what are they doing? Here's the gun that shot the president, and we haven't seen any of that. Has anybody showed anybody the gun so the public can see it? Has anybody showed anything about the bullet that struck the fireman that got killed? And I really, by the way, I really sort of object. Oh, it was all staged, it was all fake, and nobody got killed. That's very demeaning to a guy and his family, a guy who is very heroic first responder, personally, from, I think, Buffalo. And so, but have you seen those bullets? Have you seen anything about the bullets? Have you seen any analysis? I've seen nothing.
No, I've seen
nothing at all, except videos of people saying, hey, there's a guy on the roof with a gun. And apparently he took a shot at a cop who climbed up there and pointed a gun at him. He got fired on.
So, okay.
This is so bizarre. I mean, and so all of the things, if you don't want people to believe in conspiracy theories, then, sort of come out with the facts, but there's no facts. And so there's this huge vacuum. Chris Martinson, I think at Peak Prosperity, did a video about at least what sounds like two different guns, 2 different shooters. Others have come out and debunk the guy. I think pretty good debunking of the guy on the water tower, supposedly, because if you look at the size of the image there and the guy would have been 10 feet tall. So that would sort of bring in some of our Nephilim friends. And we don't really want to go there. I know that. But so I don't know, Tom, I'm just very concerned that we don't really know. We're 9 days out now, and we don't really know anything. We don't even know the caliber of the rifle. Now, I've heard of 22, AR-15, but we don't know that. There's no pictures of it. And I'm pretty savvy. I've not seen anything. That's weird.
It is very weird. We're definitely being kept in the dark on all these different things. I have so many other questions to ask you that you can help fill me in since I've been gone the last week. But so while I'm away, I hear that there was some financial market on Trump. I think it was regarding Truth Social or something like that. And,
there's a DJT stock.
Okay.
It includes within its ambit Truth Social, I believe. It's owned by DJT, Donald J. Trump. Somehow, it's some entity, and there's some things flying around that a BlackRock affiliated investment vehicle had shorted the stock in DJT last week, which means they bought what I believe it was naked shorts, and the word is it was 12 million shares. And so when you do a naked short, you're essentially means you don't own the stock, and you're doing a put that somebody can make you sell them the stock in the future at a certain price. So, and when you do a naked short, you're betting that the stock price will go down so that you can cover your obligation with cheap stock because the price has dropped. So I think it's clear that if Trump had been assassinated, and I mean, look at the physics of it, he was just milliseconds to millimeters combination of getting part of his head blown off by a pretty powerful gun and dead. And so what would happen to True Social and DJT would the stock price drop? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that if that happened, the stock price would drop. I don't know that it would go to zero, as some have claimed, but it would certainly drop. And so those people would be able to get the stock, sell it at that price, and make a ton of money. But it didn't go down. It actually went up on Monday quite a bit. And there were also some, I think, stocks shorted on Rumble, and I've heard 32 million shares. Now the company says no, those were clerical errors. It was really only 1,200 shares. It wasn't 12 million. They have to file a report. So I don't know. Then you also see the videos of the kid was at a BlackRock educational commercial for 8 or 9 or 10 seconds. The guy who's the alleged shooter. But then there's all this stuff too, is like, where's all the information on who shot him? What kind of gun shot him and killed him? And from what direction? Because now I'm seeing information that he was shot from behind, which means it wasn't the Secret Service. In that case, it wouldn't be the Secret Service shooters who were in front of him and off to his left. It was a headshot to the back, which might indicate yet another shooter. Maybe a third shooter or a second shooter. And where were these guys? And so some people are sort of, remember that guy and his son who were driving around Maryland, Virginia, DC area, shooting people. They had a sniper nest set up in the back of a car. Some people are suggesting that it was something like that. I don't know. I really don't know. But they're throwing the local police under the bus. I think the Secret Service is not taking responsibility. And the gal who's in charge, lady who's in charge, is doing a horrible job testifying today in front of Congress. It's awful. It's pathetic. If she had a sense of personal responsibility, she would walk out of that room and resign. And she could probably get the same person to write the letter who wrote the letter that they claim Biden wrote. Because I don't think Biden wrote that letter. It's not even on White House stationery, by the way.
Oh, Biden write a letter? There's no possibility.
Well, there was a statement released that he was dropping out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even on White House stationery.
Yeah.
Which seems very odd.
Well, early on when he became president, you would see him sign things. He didn't even know what he was signing, and people say, well, you need to sign this. Well, what's that? Well, just ignore it, Joe. Just sign. Just sign this. Just sign that. So I have a really hard time believing he even knows that what's going on. I don't even know if he even knows he's president. He thought he was. I heard when I was gone, he thought he was the first black woman vice president or something like that. I mean, he's got everything mixed up. It's clear he's been in decline, and then you have all these people on Morning Joe and all these politicos running around saying, "Oh, he's fine, he's great. I've never seen him more energetic or together," and it's all a big fat lie. Oh, it's totally a lie. It's gaslighting taken to another level. I want to ask you. I'm going to shift gears for a few minutes because, I mean, I'm really curious. You know, who is going to be running for president? It's obviously not going to be Kamala Harris. There's absolutely no way it's going to be Kamala Harris. So why? I'm curious on the timing of this. Why did they have Joe resign when they've got to have another plan? I think that I am very concerned that a part of this, when we see the computer problem last week with this collapse, you start looking at this, you look at what's going on with China. China has their own sets of problems, their economy. You look at all these different dynamics. Now we don't have a leader in the United States of America. Is this going to go to a place where things are going to be intentionally just crises and chaos is going to enter in, that we're going to end up into some kind of forced lockdown? I mean, I have a lot of questions right now that I think people should have.
Yeah, I've had friends who've written articles on their blog, and other people I've seen since I don't know that they read my friend's article, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I mean, what's coming? And it is very disconcerting. I'm seeing articles that I think it was in the Wall Street Journal or something. I just was reading a short time ago. I just saw the headline: major shift in stock market is coming, is in process. And I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, no kidding.
And we are rudderless. We are leaderless. I think we're under God's judgment that we get the leaders or no leaders that we deserve. The country seems rudderless. Russia is making very credible threats against the United States and Europe because Russia's upset about Ukraine. Putin is developing some weapons that have been banned, but I think because Trump withdrew from the START agreement, Putin says, well, now I can go ahead and make these missiles and weapons, which might change the face of warfare. Well, and we're seeing this in the Middle East too, which I know we'll get to shortly. Yes. So I'm very concerned. Honestly, I don't know what exactly is going to happen. I don't know if there's going to be an election.
Okay, well, that's
in the fall.
And this is going to lead into the rest of our conversation, including Israel. Because if I'm Putin or Xi Jinping or I'm one of the Mab Mullahs, I'm over there in Iran, whatever, it's like, okay, if Trump does become president, regardless of what everybody's thoughts are, I'm appalled at the position of Trump on abortion. I'm watching what's going on with the RNC. You have all these different spiritual dynamics. All right. But apart from that, if you're a world leader, you would much rather have a Biden, Kamala Harris. If you're a world leader who hates the United States, you'd want Biden Harris. You would not want Trump because Trump's going to bring a different dynamic to the table that they would have to deal with, and they don't want to risk that. So I look at that. I want to ask you about that aspect of both world leaders and Israel, what's going on there, why we need to really be paying attention. But before that, I just want to remind everybody, listen, like, subscribe, and share both this program here, this channel, and John's also at FBC. It's the one way, it's one of the best ways we can combat the lies with the truth, because we need to get the truth out there. So for both this channel and John's channel, if you would please like, subscribe, and share. And we just want to thank you guys for doing those things. Again, it's something you can do. Combat the lies with the truth. Okay, John, first thing is, we see the world leaders. What do you think? If I'm a world leader thinking, if Trump's going to be president, I have a problem. If I'm a world leader that hates the U.S.
So we know that one of the things that was sort of floated last week was that Trump had been under an increased assassination threat from Iran. And a lot of people have poo-pooed that. I actually believe it's true. If you remember, not too long after Trump directed Soleimani, a horribly evil terrorist, to be taken out, and that was done in a Hellfire missile strike on his car at Baghdad airport in Iraq. And they were only able to identify Soleimani because of the big ring that he wore. Soleimani was the head of the Quds Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and probably one of the three most powerful, maybe one of the two most powerful people in the whole nation of Iran, because he ran the military operation. After that, Khomeini, on his website, on his Twitter account, released a video that was Trump out playing golf and being chased down by a sort of this is like 4 years ago, AI robot to assassinate him. So in any threat from Iran with regard to Trump needs to be taken extremely seriously. And so Trump did say during his speech, very long speech, I think he almost went as long as a John Haller prophecy update. at the RNC, and he said, "Listen, if the American hostages are still there when I get in office, they better be home before I get in office." And I do think Trump is deadly serious about that.
I do too.
Unlike the current chuckleheads we have in who seem to appease Iran at every step, who want this hostage deal. Israel came out last week and the Knesset voted. There's 120 in Knesset, and I think the vote was 68-9. So that means there was about 48 Knesset members that just, couldn't be bothered to vote on a resolution that said, we do not accept a two-state solution at all. That was last Wednesday. That was when you read Matthew chapter 24 and Jesus is talking about the end times, that there will be earthquakes in diverse places. And it's easy. And there are people that track all the stuff that's going on within the earth in earthquakes. But I'm seeing all this stuff happen that I would term 9.0 to 9.9 geopolitical earthquakes happening all over the place. And so I would say that the Israeli Knesset resolution last week was a 9.0 earthquake in geopolitics.
There will not be a two-state solution.
I think it's the first time they ever really came out and said, we are against a two-state solution. And so Trump, going back to Trump, so Iran threatens him with a video when he's president to assassinate him. There are pretty strong rumors that they're doing it again. And so you need to believe Iran, because the other thing we need to sort of get out of our minds is that Israel Netanyahu says we have 7 fronts. So let's see if we can count all of those on his statement as he was leaving to come to the U.S. So we have the Gaza front. We have the Lebanon front with Hezbollah. We have the Syrian front. So that would be 3. We have the Houthis in Red Sea. That's 4. We have Iraq is threatening, so I think I would call Iraq 5. Iran 6, in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. So that would be 7. But we need to get away from the notion that it's Hamas in Gaza, it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, it's Hezbollah and anti-Israel people in Syria, it's militias, Shiite militias in Iraq, it's in Houthis in Yemen, and they're all kind of separate, and the West Bank is separate. It is all Iran. Every single one of them is Iran.
And we have
so we should just say that Israel's in a war with Iran, being fought in 7 different places right now.
Okay, so this is an interesting question I have for you then. So we saw the drone that hit Tel Aviv last week. What was it, 100 meters or something like that from the U.S. Embassy? Is that where it was?
Yeah, well, I guess in Israel you would say it was a soccer field away from what used to be the U.S. Embassy. Of course, that was moved to Jerusalem during the Trump administration, but it's a consulate in Tel Aviv.
Okay, so we have that. That happened.
And that thing, by the way, that drone. Now, I've heard they shot down 5, and there's been a couple get through, and they're not super sophisticated drones, but they can fly low underneath detection systems, and they make a terrible sound. They sound like a cheap motorcycle coming in. So it has kind of a terror effect. I mean, you can see the videos, and people are filming it as it goes across the sky. They're on the beach there by Tel Aviv. It flew 1,600 miles. up across the Sinai, over Egypt, out through the Mediterranean, turned and came into Tel Aviv. And we think of the Houthis, the Iranian group in Yemen, as sort of just a cut above Stone Age, but they're not. They have these weapons, and as many people have talked about, Brett Gillette has talked about it quite a bit. I think done a good job. The state of warfare is changing because Israel and the U.S., we have all these fancy schmancy detection systems. And what we're seeing with the Iranian-backed groups, very similar to what Ukraine has been able to do to Russia in some respects, in Ukraine, is use almost off-the-shelf technology and software to make things difficult for companies that have for countries that have sophisticated technology.
So that presents the problem in the Red Sea. Now, what are your thoughts? So Israel just destroys this place in Yemen where the Houthis, what was it, where they were making their weapons or where they housed them, was a warehouse or whatever it was. That was just annihilated. I think the U.S. had joined Israel in that.
I'm not sure that the U.S. did. Okay. I think that was all Israel.
Okay, that was all Israel then. Okay, I saw different reports that, okay, but either way it happened. So as you look at what's going on in the north, and you mentioned the problem is Iran. Iran's had billions of dollars given to them from the U.S., Obama and everything else. So we look at that problem.
By the way, can I interrupt you for just a second? So
please do. Yeah.
We've given billions to Iran. Whether you say I can interrupt you or not, I'm going to do it anyway. So you know me. But Blinken's at the Aspen Security Conference last week, over the Friday or Saturday in Aspen, Colorado. And he says, yeah, we think Iran is really 1 or 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon.
So
you've been giving them money.
Yeah, he says that. Well, there's such a, but if we keep giving them everything that they want, then they won't do anything, and the war will never escalate. The reality of it is going to escalate. Iran is the problem. Okay, Israel does this to the Houthis down in Yemen. I mean, to stop Iran from doing this, there has to be something massive that Israel's going to have to do.
That would seem to be the case. I mean, the Houthis today have released threatening videos and tweets through Twitter and Telegram channels that they use. And one of them is they have a map of Tel Aviv that's divided into sections. And it says all of you in blocks 31, 34, 38, 39, 50, it's about 40, 50 blocks. You need to get ready because we're coming after you and something could hit you at any moment.
Okay, so that's a big deal. So everything's escalating. At least the verbiage is. The rhetoric certainly is. But like you said, we have to take Iran seriously. When Iran says we want to take out Trump, well, they do, regardless. So you hear something like that. Listen, these are bad terrorists, and they hate Israel. So what on earth would make us think that, no, the Houthis are just saying this? No, they're not just saying it. Israel lives under this every day. And then we have the anti-Israel rhetoric that's here in the United States that is just continuing to grow on the right. But you watch this, Israel's being put in a very bad position at a time when there is no world leader and America is leaderless. I mean, how long can Israel continue like they have been?
Well, I don't think very long. So an interesting thing to watch over the next 24 to 48 hours is, does Netanyahu get an actual meeting with a live Joe Biden? And I have a problem. I agree with Mike Johnson, the majority leader in the House, and others who've said, I think I said this yesterday, yeah, I know I said it yesterday, was if Biden can't run for office, how can he run the office?
Yeah, no kidding.
of president. I mean, and so we're left leaderless at a very critical time. I mean, honestly, do you think Kamala Harris is up for it?
Uh, I think you've picked maybe the worst person in the world that you could have actually being a leader. So there are so many fishy things going on with this.
Off there, somebody did a mashup of the Julia Louis-Dreyfus program called Veep, where she played she would say these really stupid things, and then they would have Julia Louis-Dreyfus with Kamala Harris actually giving a talk or speech. And you couldn't tell the difference between the two. So you feel like you're living in this kind of weird. I have a friend. He used to be Army Ranger, CIA, Russian desk, and all this stuff. And he says, I feel like I'm living in one of those Fellini movies. Those Italian movies that never made sense. They were all kind of disconnected, disjointed, and that's now our reality. We're living in a Fellini movie.
No kidding. So, I'm looking at all these different things. I'm going to read this quote again from Job because it's just so fitting. He, the Lord, makes nations great. He destroys them. He enlarges nations and leads them away. He takes away understanding from the chiefs of the people of the earth and makes them wander in a trackless waste. They grope in the dark without light, and he makes them stagger like a drunken man. I look at that, and then I also think in Psalm 2, where the nations rage, they plot a conspiracy against the Lord and against his anointed. And God says, I will hold them in derision. The Lord sits in the heavens and laughs. And it looks like this is where we are. I don't believe Psalm 2 is fulfilled until later on, but it looks like we're living through this right now because the insanity of the leaders is either this is totally intentional, which is possible by them, but we know ultimately God is on the throne. But I mean, you look at these things, John, these are just as stupid. And there's such stupidity that is taking over the leadership of America.
But you're really seeing, other prophecy sort of, there's the prophecy has the ultimate fulfillment, but then there's the build up to the ultimate fulfillment. Because they don't happen, it's not like you pull one out of the hat, like here's this prophecy fulfilled. It just happened as I pulled it out of the hat. That's not the way it goes. It builds up to that, like the horses of Revelation.
What's your friend say? He says prophecy is
pattern.
Pattern. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, pattern. And so what happened before with Israel and the time of the Babylonian captivity, I think will be the church and world in the end times, the same patterns. And there's more. I mean, some Orthodox Jewish friends I have believe that Genesis is a sort of a what they would call a midrash pattern for the whole unfolding of human history all the way to the end. And some of it works, the suffering servant, the suffering Joseph and that type of thing fits. And then I think I've told you about, at Hebron, when Isaac was buried, Jacob and Esau reconciled. And so Jewish rabbis will take that, some, and say that's a picture of the end times, that at Hebron, there will be this great reconciliation between Jew and Arab at Hebron, at Machpelah, where it happened before. It'll be the same. That's the pattern, and it will be fulfilled in a big final fulfillment. But the other thing you see the world really coming against Israel. I know we're kind of running short on time. The International Court of Justice came out with this ridiculous opinion saying that Israel was, they kind of fudged on occupying Gaza because they couldn't say Israel was occupying Gaza. But they really came out and said the occupation and settlements in Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, are illegal under international law. And to refute that, I would recommend a website that you probably follow. And if you're listening to this, you love Israel, you should follow it. The Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, JCPA, they have a YouTube channel. And yesterday, this phenomenal British lawyer, she's Jewish, Natasha Hausdorff, did about an hour YouTube video with this guy picking apart the ICJ opinion that came out on Friday. And by the way, they released it on Friday because they knew that when they released it, the Jews were going to go to have Shabbat, so they couldn't respond for at least 24 hours. That was intentional.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah. Heck yeah, it was. So, John, when I look at these different things that are taking place, I can't help but think we are definitely watching a convergence. Things are picking up pace. We don't know when is the next shoe going to drop, but everybody knows the next shoe is going to drop. And by the way, John, John's going to be joining me, everybody, September 8th in Temecula, California. Just John and myself at 412 Church in Temecula. Actually, on the 6th and 7th, we're with Brandon Holthouse at the conference he has for the geopolitical conference. We'll both be there for Brandon Holthouse conference. And John is going to drive south with me. And we're going to be at 412 Church in Temecula on September 8th, that Sunday evening. And then in November, John's joining me and about 15 others for the End of the World Conference. It's following the supposed elections. The elections are on like Tuesday, that following Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the End of the World Conference with John Aller. It's going to be great. So all these things are available on the website. But John, what's going to take place just between now and tomorrow, we don't know.
Well, certainly whatever talks I'm preparing on geopolitics and the end of the world are going to be done in PowerPoint so I can change them very quickly because I don't want to do them too far in advance.
No kidding. Well, you're pretty good right off the cuff too. So, but I mean, we have such interesting dynamics that are taking place right now. I personally think that the computer thing that happened last week was a dry run. That's my own opinion. We still aren't getting, you get all these different things that are thrown out there. I don't know what's going on with that, but we look at the dynamic in Israel, and that is the most telling sign of everything. Netanyahu's before Congress tomorrow.
Which, by the way, is Tammuz 17, which Hezbollah, I have to dig it out. Hezbollah was making some threats about that date. So people like David Wormser, who's with the Center for Security Policy, Frank Gaffney's group, he's saying, everybody, you just need to be very situationally aware in Israel tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding. And the threat from the Houthis for how they've divided up Tel Aviv, I mean, is just, we live in amazing days, but.
Well, can I just say one other thing? It's in the Daily Sabah right now. I just saw that Assad from Syria, which kind of borders on Israel, and Turkey, Erdogan from Turkey, which is also a major player in some of these end-time prophecies, are going to be having a meeting to discuss resolving their differences in Moscow, I believe this week.
Oh, what a coincidence.
People in the U.S. government are saying, oh, well, good. They're going to get together and they're going to push Iran off to the side.
That's hardly going to happen.
And Tony Badrin, who's another good guy, if you follow him, he writes at Tablet Magazine, and I think his Twitter is @Across the Bay. He says, this is ridiculous. This is the 40-year fantasy that we've dealt with on Iran. And the people in charge believe that, oh, we can contain Iran, we can appease Iran. And how's that really working?
Yeah, no kidding. Unbelievable days that we are living in, John. But to be alive right now is really remarkable. There's a passage, 2 Timothy chapter 3, where in the last days evil men will wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. And then Paul changes and he says, but you remember the Holy Scriptures and what you have learned. And as we look at everything, John, that would be an exhortation I would have to anybody that's a believer in Christ is, yes, these people will do worse and worse. They're going to get worse and worse. The deception will get worse and worse. But you, was what Paul said, but you. If you're a believer, remember the Word, because the Word is our anchor, the Word is our hope. We can't turn to the left or the right of what the Word does say. So we live in interesting times. John, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with everybody?
I just think everybody needs to be situationally aware. I think we need to be aware that people that are enemies of, like, say, Israel and that type of thing kind of creep in. I mean, what's the passage say? That they crept in unawares. And so while that applies to sort of theology and doctrine in the church, it also applies to our view that we share that Israel is important. We should support it. I mean, we agree with everything that they do, but that is very important in this whole end time scenario. And so, for example, I don't want to open another can of worms for you, but, Tucker did that interview with John Rich last week, the country singer, who's got a song out called Revelation. And it immediately became, because he attacked the pre-trib rapture. And immediately everybody was putting up videos about that. But I think everybody missed the big point of that interview, which occurs about between minutes 37 and 38 or 40 of that interview, if you want to get it. And by the way, when I was using the clip yesterday of the video, YouTube killed our feed. So if you want, everything should be intact at Rumble, at Real FPC. But what Rich said was that, Darby hooked up with Schofield, and Schofield, and I'm not sure what the connection. I don't know, because Darby died in 1892, and I think the Schofield Reference Bible came out about 17 years later. So I don't know that Darby and Schofield were working together, but Schofield picked up what Darby had been talking about, I think, and built it into a study Bible. And I got a copy on my shelf over here, and I don't agree with all of it. I mean, for example, it teaches a gap theory in Genesis chapter 1. Which I think is clear error, but at least I think if that's my recollection. But they did make the statement that Schofield, it was kind of fuzzy the way they said it. It was either Schofield or Darby, Schofield worked with the Rothschilds to publish the study Bible. And then Tucker says, "Oh yeah, this is this whole thinking is deceptive, and it's caused all kinds of problems in the U.S. foreign policy." And what Tucker meant was, it causes support for Zionism or for Israel and protecting Israel, and that's not. And what he was saying, not so directly, but what is clear from the way he's done these interviews, Mother Isaac and elsewhere, he's no friend of Israel.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal for me. And I hope it's a big deal for all the people that listen to this channel, particularly at this time. And I just am concerned about this, because when I look at the RNC, there's Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, his Trump family, and J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson all up there on the stage together.
It's a huge concern. I think, John, that this anti-Zionism, which is really anti-Semitism in a different form, is going to increase so much so that people like you and I and people who follow us have been pro-Israel, and we understand biblically why. For the average follower who is pro-Israel, it's going to become much more difficult for them in the coming days, because the pressure is going to be there. Lies like this are going to be said by some very prominent, well-known, and well-loved people. Listen, the world is going to turn against Israel, and it's turning. But the good news is God is also turning Israel to him in the process.
Well, and you saw that video I sent you last week about, I forget what the title of it is. It kind of passed around a lot of people in our community about expecting Messiah.
Yeah.
And there is this growing desire for Mashiach to come in Israel. Now, that's a double-edged sword. We know that. You know, there's a deceptive part of that. So we got to figure out how to turn that desire to Jesus. Because Mashiach is coming. It's just that he's already been here before and did all this. So I just think we live at this very interesting time. And on Zionism, anti-Zionism being anti-Semitic, there was a debate that took place on that topic in Canada recently called the Munk, M-U-N-K. You can find bits and pieces of it across Twitter. And it was Douglas Murray and Natasha Hausdorff defending Zionism in Israel. And again, you need to follow Natasha Hausdorff. Go to UK Lawyers for Israel, UKLFI is their Twitter handle, and you'll find all of her videos there. And she made this tremendous defense about why anti-Zionism is anti-Israel. And she said, if you're a husband and wife and you want to have a baby and you have a baby, it would be safe to say, and I'm probably fracturing the impeccable logic that she used, you are clearly pro-baby before you have the baby. And then the baby comes. If you kill the baby, then you're anti-baby. So you can't say that you want Israel, you want to be Zionist, and now you want to kill Israel. Mm-hmm. That's anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. It's an impeccable logic. I mean, they won the debate. They just smashed these people. She's so intelligent. I'm going to try to get an interview with her soon, and if I can, if she has time. And she's just superb, as is Douglas Murray. And this is Pete Garcia and I were sort of texting back and forth this morning, and he said this after October 8th, and I said it after October 7th, and I said it, I'm pretty sure the next day when I did an update as we were kind of watching things unfold down there along the Gaza border, that the issue of Israel will be the most divisive issue in the evangelical church until the Lord returns.
Yep. In fact, it was back, we were in July last year, we had a conference in Mexico, and it was, Brandon was there and Billy, and we were talking what is going to be the next thing to divide the church. And our conversation was Israel. And then that was pre-October 7th. You see this, and it's only going to become, it's only going to increase that much more. So true. John, thank you for joining me today. Any final words for everybody? Good to be back, by the way. Thank you, everybody.
I know Jesus is coming back at some point, and he's going to set up a kingdom. In the meantime, I don't see any of this being walked back. You know, I always say each year when I've been doing my updates the last few years is, how far do we get into this year before you long for the good old days of last year? And now I'm sort of saying with the news cycle over the last 3 weeks in the United States and around the world with the elections and everything, it's sort of like, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could go back to June, the calm days of June? And so I just think it's going to be a tumultuous world that we live in, but God's faithful. And I really don't sit around and worry. You know, I'm aware, but I don't sit around and worry about it, partly because a lot of it's out of my control anyway. So I think, you know, trust the Lord, share the gospel, and take efforts to support Israel.
Yep. Amen. Great being with you again today, John, as I mentioned. Always good to see you. I'm glad to be back, and I can't wait till next time with you. And again, September 8th, everybody, 412 Church in Temecula. Then again, coming up in November, we have conference registration that is open for the end of the World Conference, if we're still here. I mean, everything's so wild, but exciting days we live in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. John, see you next time.
Good to be with you, Tom. Thank you.